evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's TriBoard Meeting. Today is November 24th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. You just need to mute that. Okay, it is 7:09 p.m. and I'm going to call this select board to order. Everyone is in attendance and everyone is in the room. And on Zoom, I see Jean Russell and Mike Rupp. So, Mr. Menard, can you call the Finance Committee to order?
I will call the Finance Committee to order, and we have everyone except for Tanya Dahl.
Okay, and Mr. Scullenbrady?
I'm going to call the school committee to order, and we have everybody except for Emily Young. Oh, and Georgia.
All right, fantastic. And the only thing on the agenda tonight is a preliminary budget presentation from the school department. So, Dr. Fortuna, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Nestle. Good evening, members of the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the School Committee. Before we begin the presentation, I would like to set the stage for our discussion tonight. We are aware that there are outstanding questions regarding the FY25 budget. However, to respect the specific purpose of this TriBoard meeting, we will not be addressing FY25 matters in this specific forum. We remain deeply committed to transparency with the citizens of Lunenburg. To that end, the school committee chair, the business administrator, and I will be participating in an in-depth interview with the Lunenburg Ledger to address those specifics. Following the publication of that article, we are planning a dedicated public forum to answer community questions directly. Our focus for this meeting is strictly forward-looking. We are here to present the strategic outlook for FY27, as well as our projections for FY28 and FY29. Shifting our focus to these future years is critical so that we can effectively plan to meet the needs of each and every Lunenburg student moving forward. Tonight we are presenting the fiscal year 2027 budget outlook, a beginning of a financial plan developed to address the immediate and long-term educational needs of the district. The administration acknowledges that this outlook represents a total allocation that is significantly higher than that of the previous fiscal year. While specific budget drivers, inflationary pressures, and fiscal assumptions are detailed in subsequent sections of this report, it is imperative to first establish the strategic context of this request. The core of this proposal is not expansion, but restoration. The personnel requisitions included in this budget are identified strictly as needed positions rather than discretionary enhancements. This proposal serves as the foundational year of a strategic 3-year process aimed at systematically restoring the necessary roles and functions that were eliminated during the FY26 budget cycle. The district's primary goal for this investment is clear: bridging the gap to return to essential service levels. By prioritizing these restorations, the district aims to stabilize class sizes, reinstate critical support services, and ensure that the educational environment meets the requisite standards for student success. This outlook is built on our best current knowledge and realistic assumptions. However, we know that circumstances can change. We remain flexible and prepared to make necessary line item transfers within our eventual allocation to ensure we are always meeting the evolving needs of our students. With that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. McNamara.
Good evening. So for tonight's presentation, first we're going to start off with the staffing contracts for the Lunenburg Public Schools.
The Lunenburg Education Association contract runs from 2024 to 2027. The custodial contract runs from 2023 to 2026. Paraprofessionals contract runs from 2025 to 2028. The secretary's contract runs from 2025 to 2028. And the cafeteria contract runs from 2023 to 2026. For tonight's meeting, we made some budget assumptions. The first one being enrollment. And as you can see, enrollment has remained relatively flat since FY07, which directly impacts revenue. And as you all know, enrollment directly affects Chapter 70 funding in Massachusetts because it is the primary factor in calculating a district's foundation budget. The next assumption we made were salary increases that are contractual. For teachers, they're getting a 3.5% raise, paraprofessionals 3%, secretaries 4%, and cafeteria and custodial contracts are both up for renewal. The next budget assumption we made tonight was for health insurance costs was a projected 20% increase for FY27 through 29. As you can see from FY23, our actuals were about roughly $3 million. And if you go to FY29, with a projected 20% increase each year, it's going to reach $6.395 million. The next budget assumption is utility costs. Currently, the costs for electricity and heating are currently under review to understand the heating increases in the past few years and to find cost savings on electricity. Currently, we run through a third provider, EDG Energy, and as you will see, our electricity has gone from FY23 at $170,889, and it's projected to be in FY29 $418,241. Heating costs have gone down, and that's why they're under review. But we're projecting for FY27, $148,320, FY28, $152,769, and FY29, $157,352. The next budget assumption we made is transportation, which is contractual with D-Bus, which runs from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2028. And those are the actual and budgeted costs for the contractual agreement with D-Busing.
Chris, can I pause you?
Yeah.
Mr. Moderator, is it okay if I add something?
Of course, yeah, go for it.
So when you look at the budget assumptions that Chris has just walked us through, all of them are contractual or beyond our control, like we have to have health insurance, we have to have heating. The only one that is, in theory, subject to the free market is the bus contract. But, and I believe this is correct, the last 3 bids that we put out, we bid in multi-year increments, we have not had any bids other than D-Bus. So while this is not mandatory because of the contract or because of state law or controlled by market forces, this one is essentially the same. We cannot change this, we've tried, there are no alternatives.
Chris,
Yep,
so you have budgeted for FY 26, 27, 28, is that the contract?
that's a contractual.
So
agreement.
we wouldn't expect that to?
So I actually believe for FY26, it was under budgeted by about $10,000.
Even though it's under contract?
Yes, it was under budgeted for the year.
It means you'll be seeing on a subsequent school committee meeting a line item transfer.
Yeah, but how does, I mean, is that, I can understand that special education maybe fluctuates, is that the line that was under, but, you know?
No, it was the general education transportation line that was under budgeted.
And that's not disturbing the contract? Unfortunately, we didn't put the FY 26 budget together.
I know, but I'm saying, so your FY 27 and 28, that's contract, though?
Yeah.
Contract remains.
The next budget assumption is high need students. Our percentage of high needs students has steadily increased since 2019 to 2020 school year. The state classifies a student as high needs if they belong to one or more of the following groups: students with disabilities, English language learners, and/or low-income students. Next, school choice. As you can see, the outgoing trend has decreased steadily since FY17, which means students are staying in our district and stabilizing the foundation enrollment, which helps with our foundation budget. The next budget assumption is technology. After speaking with our network administrator and our outside IT consultant, they have both predicted a 3% increase in online subscriptions, along with an 8% increase in tech and equipment. And I believe the last budget assumption was supplies. So during our budget process, the school principals were an integral part of the budget planning process for their anticipated supply needs. Each principal prepared a spreadsheet for the upcoming 3 years with different categories of expenses they anticipated. To these amounts, we added estimated shipping costs and a 12% tariff.
How did you get that 12% tariff?
That was just, oh, do you want to take that? That was just from research we had done online and just seen over the news. So yeah, there really hasn't been a book written on the tariffs yet, but that's just, we saw between 12 and 15% for the tariffs for everything that's coming overseas.
It was written in pencil.
Does that include the Chromebook?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes. So that was built in, 'cause I think that was 8% increase.
Yeah, we definitely, that did impact our Chromebook purchases.
I can look into that and get back to you, but it was from.
I'm just wondering if, because the slide just says 8% increase in tech and equipment, if that's an increase that not to the
I
count.
believe it has been.
All right, as we go into, the FinCom meetings, we'll have to, I want to see something that,
Yeah.
because inflation is actually lower than it has been over the last.
Okay.
I don't think they're passing on the tariffs as much as
Okay.
people want to think they are.
So as we move into the data portion of the presentation, I want to pause and explain exactly why we are asking you to focus your attention and our district's resources on literacy this year. The why is simple but critical: active citizenship. We believe that every student should leave us confident in their ability to read, understand text, and make informed decisions about the world. Literacy isn't just the subject, it's the tool that allows students to choose their own path in life. Unfortunately, our current reality is that about half of our students are not yet demonstrating the achievement levels necessary to guarantee that independence. That 50% gap is the driving force behind some of our budget requests that you'll see this evening. So first, this first slide is our early literacy screener. It's called M-Class. We give this screener to all students in K through 4, with some students in grade 5 also taking this test. You can see as the district, we have 45% of our students are currently below or well below the expected grade level standard for this time in the school year. That increases, I feel, dramatically with our kindergarten students, where 39% are well below and 22% are below.
When is this test given?
This test is given in the fall when students come, so it's how the students are coming into us. For grade 1, it is, again, we're back to 45% of our students being well below or below. And then that drops to 42% in grade 2. For our grade 3 students, our well below is 18% and our below is 25%. For our grade 4 students, our well below is 13% and our below is 18%. And for our 5th grade, 29% of our students are well below where they're expected to be at the beginning of 5th grade, and 21% are below. So we have grave concerns about reading. This test primarily looks at the foundational skills needed for reading. So it looks at phonics, word segmentation, syllabication, things like that. There's also a comprehension component where students have to show that they understand the material by filling in missing words. So that is that test. I'd like to now change. Yeah,
What are we comparing, is this statewide? Are we
National.
comparing- National?
yeah.
Dr. Fortuna, I just want to make sure that everybody on the TriBoard meeting is aware. Grade 5 was the cohort that was in kindergarten during COVID. So that's why that number looks weird.
And our kindergarten students were the children that were born during COVID. And so I think that's why we're seeing these bookends there.
How long do you have this data for? Do you have this from like past 10 years?
No, I can get it for you for the past 3.
3?
Yeah.
But are you looking at it?
Yes.
That's how far we've been using this?
Yes. All right, now on
Can
to.
I just ask, I'm sorry, one more follow-up question. Has there been, do we think that this is an index or a result of COVID? Has there been nationwide slips, or do we think that there might be a little bit something special going on here as well?
There have been national slips, but in most places, this is above the 45 to 50% level range. So it was concerning to me as I look at this data to see that we were so high.
Do you know how we compare at the state level?
For this test, it's not, for this assessment, it's not given to every student, but our MCAS data does do that, and we'll see that. We're performing above the state in most areas. However, my concern with that is when you take into account what the largest gateway districts are in the state, those scores are also counted in here, which is a different, having worked in the largest school district in the state, is a very different learning experience and student profile than our students in Lunenburg. And so I don't always love the state averages to compare to because it's not comparing apples to apples. So for our grade 3 data, what we're focusing on, next slide. What we're focusing on now are really English language arts. So how are students doing in reading and writing, comprehension, being able to write to text. So this is a more complex assessment than the initial assessment results that we showed you for 3rd grade. What you'll see here is that 54% of our students are only partially meeting or not meeting expectations. This is at the end of 3rd grade last year. That compares to the state average. As you can see, we're slightly above the state average where it was 36% and 19% that were not meeting the state average. Not meeting expectations and partially meeting expectations. So 54% of our 3rd graders were not demonstrating literacy skills to the grade level standard at the end of last year. .64% of our 4th grade students were not demonstrating literacy skills at grade level standards last year. You'll see that 54% were partially meeting standards and 10% were not meeting expectations at all.
And this is the group that is the 5th grade data.
This is the group that is the 5th grade,
Okay.
yes.
So that's, for me
Yes.
as well, this is 4th grade. They took this test at the end of last year. My child just happens to be in this grade, but now he's in 5th grade, so he took the dibbles this year.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Here, you'll see that 57% of our fifth grade students, these are our current sixth graders, were not demonstrating literacy skills to the grade level standard. The story gets a little bit better in middle school, where only 43% of our sixth grade students were not demonstrating literacy skills to grade level standards. 49% of our seventh grade from eighth grade students were not demonstrating literacy skills to the seventh grade standard expectations. 44% of our eighth grade students were not demonstrating literacy skills at the eighth grade level. And this last slide is showing you the increase from 2021 to 2025 in the amount of English language learners that our district is servicing. This doesn't include former English language learners. These are currently students that need to learn English. And you'll see why this is important later in the presentation. We've grown from 1.1% of our total student population being English language learners to 3.5% of our students now. 3.5% amounts to approximately 55 students. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Can you speak to the grade distribution of those?
I can't speak to that. They're distributed. I can speak distributed across all 4 schools, and we have 2 teachers that are currently servicing all 4 campuses. And I could provide more informative data around what level
But
of
there's not like
English
a
acquisition.
bulk of them coming in
No.
to like the primary.
How many languages are there, native languages?
Our primary language is Spanish, but we also have some students that are learning Portuguese as well, but by far Spanish is our primary language. Give me 1 second, because I want to do a good job with this. So our justification for the academic interventionist position is grounded in our data that we just saw. First, the data. We are consistently seeing that approximately half of our students are not meeting grade level standards in ELA and reading. Our current classroom teachers are working incredibly hard, but the volume of students needing support requires dedicated reinforcement. And you can see that in the level of high needs students as they increase, and we're seeing that play out in our classrooms every day. Second, the research. We know that reading skills are cumulative. Early proficiency builds momentum, while early struggles can compound over time, creating a gap that gets harder to close as students get older. By adding an academic, we can provide targeted acceleration to students now when they're young, ensuring that they have the foundational skills necessary to succeed in every subject area moving forward. And so now we're going to go into a series of staff restorations that we are seeking. The first is a 1.0 interventionist to address early literacy and math gaps. That comes at a cost of approximately $72,441. The assumption that we made here when doing the salary is that we'd be hiring at a teacher with a master's degree that has 5 years of experience. So this is master's 5 on the teacher's scale. And then we're going to do some kindergarten support restructuring, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Squire and her staff for actually coming up with the creative way to do this. It was very important to us that we were able to staff our kindergarten classrooms with paraprofessionals, which had been a cut several years ago. So what we're adding here is a 1.0 kindergarten paraprofessional. The cost of that is about $22,205. That's based on, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, para with a teaching license with a bachelor's degree. Not a teacher's license, just a bachelor's degree. And that'll be funded by the primary school through reductions in general supplies. And then they currently have an intervention para, what you're familiar being called an MTSS para. We're trying to get away from that nomenclature because MTSS is a system, it's not a person. So that's why you're seeing this interventionist language. These are the MTSS teachers that were cut last year that we're trying to replace.
First, thanks for calling out the insurance and the salary and Chris. You call out, in addition to literacy gaps, math gaps as well.
Yes, there are math gaps, though our primary focus is really on that literacy and getting every student reading by third grade, reading at the grade level standard by third grade.
So there's testing for math as well, like you showed?
There is,
And below?
yes. Though in fourth grade, we made great progress this year through some creative things that Mrs. Resnick was doing with teachers and supporting them to understand the Tier 1 materials as part of our Student Opportunity Act grant. The state actually called us because of the growth that we were demonstrating in fourth grade. And
Improvement.
yeah, and wanted to interview us. So math is chugging along and going well.
So, Dr. Fortune, I just want to add 2 points to what you just said. Number one, the change in the way that math is taught means that literacy is the key to math as well as the key to everything else. You're not seeing giant pages of 64 plus 31. It's all reading. And so if you can develop the skills for reading, it will have an increase in your math scores as well. And then the second thing I wanted to point out is about the interventionist request in the primary school. Because of things that happened in the kindergarten class, Principal Squire was not just the principal. This is like hair clip for men. She was also a kindergarten teacher for a while. So I think that a lot of these insights about the needs for a kindergarten paraprofessional aren't just like high-minded ideas. It is something that she saw firsthand. And kindergarten's crazy. You have not seen kindergarten in operation.
Yes, and I just wanted to say, Dr. Bookus put together a great memo for the school committee that outlined all of this information. This is just a snapshot, but I'm sure we could get it to anyone on the committee who wanted to know. With the MCAS data that included math, some of the math stuff for the younger kids and everything.
And I wanted to add too, my oldest was a kindergartner 10 years ago, and they had paras in the classrooms. We have been steadily losing things in the school as costs have increased, and we have had to reallocate resources in different places. So this would bring us not even up to where we were 10 years ago, and I can tell you that having 3 kids spread out over a few years, the experiences are very different in Lunenburg Public Schools right now than they were 10 years ago.
In my experience, a kindergarten class size of 23 without a para is almost unheard of in any other district.
Is that our average?
Yes, 22 to 23, correct?
I have a question. The 22,000 for the kindergarten paraprofessional, is that the part that you're talking about funding with cuts to general supplies?
Yes.
Are you going to talk about what's being cut there?
We aren't this evening, that's a TBD.
Okay.
The insurance costs for this too are, the assumption behind those is the highest tier plan, the family rate.
Yep.
We figured we would be safe and go with that as our assumption. Next slide.
Just one question, on 22,000, that's 6 hours a day, 180 days a year?
It's 6.5 hours a day, 180 days a year, 183, because we have professional development.
Are we gonna actually find paras that are willing to?
That's one of the reasons you're seeing paraprofessionals get the increase that they are. We're having a very difficult time filling our paraprofessional positions because our rate of pay is not competitive, despite the new contract.
I mean, I was gonna say, this is full-time, does it even meet minimum wage?
It does.
It does,
But
just
barely.
about.
Just about,
Just
yeah.
about.
What does that work out to an hour?
Is that 180 days of school?
183,
83.
6.5
18 to
hours.
66.
Yeah.
I
So,
mean, that's fairly minimum wage.
Dunkin' Donuts is,
Yeah.
is higher, higher rate, anywhere in the state of Massachusetts. So I think it's $5.25 or $5.70, or $15.25 or $15.75 right now. So the paraprofessionals are not.
We, in contract negotiations last year, wanted to bring it up to a better salary, and because of the budget constraints, we were extremely limited in what we can do.
Yeah, I was at the primary school today, or the primary school student, I don't know what the group is called. The council. Sorry, I've been to too many meetings this week. And she said she has 4 openings currently, so hopefully gonna, not more than 4?
One, we have 3 offers out.
She has 3 offers out, so, I mean, so it's not that they're not trying to fill them, but I'm just saying, you know, they're not easy jobs to fill, I guess is what I'm.
and then we have people that start and realize that for the salary they're making, the amount and intensity of the work that we're asking them to do, it just doesn't equate. Our paras are really our teacher's right hand and are managing some difficult behaviors right now, as well as trying to provide that remediation, remedial and acceleration support that we're talking about.
Yeah, paras are one position that you can get grants, right? There's a formula.
We can have them on our 240 grant, which is our special education grant.
I'm just wondering, how does the pay on the grant compare to what you're,
We have to pay the same contractual rate.
oh, so it's still,
Yes.
that's low.
One final point. You said bachelor's required, not preferred, required.
No, bachelor's is preferred for
Preferred.
the para position.
Okay.
We budgeted at the bachelor's level.
Gotcha, thank you. Okay.
There's a level lower than this?
Yes,
Actually,
there's 2 levels lower.
Is this model sustainable? I mean,
No.
That's why we're.
No, but I mean, like,
No.
maybe we don't need paras, maybe we need something else.
I
If
would
you're gonna pay
definitely
the-
say we need paras, but we need to have an increase in funds to pay them. The work that they do is invaluable to the district.
So, Chris, if I could just respond to something. I had never been in some of the classrooms, and I think that very few people have ever been in some of the classrooms, especially for kids that have serious needs. And I don't know how else we could staff them without using paras, unless we wanted to spend, $500,000 on one classroom. Some of the services that are provided are so essential and so basic, just keeping people safe. When Dr. Fortuna,
Inside the building.
when Dr. Fortuna and I went, one of the things that happened was we had people that were trying to, show us how to open doors, and the doors had security on them so that you couldn't sneak out. I mean, that's just like really, really basic stuff. And it would be great if we could have 4 teachers and 5 students. But I think that without overtaxing the budget, paras are the way to go. I kind of think of them as like the non-commissioned officers for classrooms. We just need somebody who has lots of experience and knows what to do on those kind of, basic practical questions like, should this kid be trying to open this door? Or should this kid, be sitting over here by himself? Or should this kid, how do you calm this kid down? Like, those are some of the things that paras are doing. And so it is, I would love there to be a different model. And I think that, if there was some way to bring ideas to the table, that would be great. But I think that until then, the best choice we have are the paras. I mean, I think that like, some of them bring skills that you don't teach in class, right? They can sit down and calm somebody down because that's who they are as a person, right? They just, like, I'm not that person, so I don't know what that means, but like, they can calm you down by putting their hand on your shoulder. And sometimes that's all the kids need.
Yeah, the paras are the backbone, are one of the essential backbones of the school system. And aside from replacing them with certified teachers at an extreme expense, I don't know what other model there is, and this is how I think school systems, the country-wide, handle these needs.
Do we have open positions currently for paraprofessionals now?
We do.
Is there not a lot?
We have 3 offers out. There's one unfilled position at the primary school. There are 0 unfilled positions at Turkey Hill. And there's, I believe, 3 unfilled positions at the middle high school.
And is the turnover rate higher for this particular type of job?
It is. One of the problems we've had at primary school is we've had people start and quit within a week.
Yeah.
It's a hard job.
Yeah.
I could not do it. It requires patience, and it's a very difficult job.
And it's hard, you don't pay them very much.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I hear, it's a very important position. So the question is, it's not even a budget issue, it's a question of, we could have 20 paraprofessionals, if we can't hire them, we're not gonna pay them, or we're not, so it's a question of, I think Chris was mentioning, is this the right model? I mean, yeah, we could give them 50 grand a year instead of 22. Okay, then how many can we afford? We can't afford as many. It's, what do we do? I don't have an answer, because that's not my expertise, and I don't know if anybody has an answer, but it's not a budget issue to me. It's more of this is broken and it needs to be fixed.
It's not an answer. The math works out to about 4 paras for 1 teacher.
And, I mean, like, to be clear, there is another model, right? And we all know what that model is. And it's called St. Lawrence Academy, Groton Academy, or Peabody Essex Academy. And you have a class size of 10 kids. You don't have an obligation to educate kids with special needs. And then you can afford to eliminate paraprofessional positions. Because those schools, they don't have it, but they also have 8 kids that have been handpicked to be the best and the brightest and require nothing other than, to be wound up at the beginning of the day, and then they just go and do everything you ever want them to do. And so that is another model. It's just, it's not one that the law allows public education to use.
How
There's also
about
public
parent
charter school
volunteers?
models that are different than,
And
they do have to accept all of those.
Yeah, and I think they do also use some assistance.
Can I ask, what is the role, like, if there's any role for parents volunteer in classrooms?
We love having parent volunteers.
And like, what are the roles allowed for parents to volunteer in a classroom?
Well, one of the things, to be honest with you, that we need to get better at is training our parent volunteers so that they can help with intervention. But some of the more behavioral focused issues shouldn't be handled by a parent who doesn't have the specialized training that some of our paras have.
What is the training for a paraprofessional?
The training for a paraprofessional is many of our paraprofessionals are trained in specific de-escalation strategies for students. Many of them are trained by the teacher they work with to do small intervention groups with students to help shore up academic skills. To offer that to a parent in a parent group is something that we can certainly explore. However, what we would need is we need a consistent time commitment from parents. It couldn't just be, I'm going to drop in for an hour this week. We would need the capacity, our teachers to have the capacity to train the parents, which they currently don't have, given all we have on their plate right now. So that's not a viable option for replacing paras, but it is a way to enhance classroom support.
Because, can I just, sorry, I can see, and I know for your staff, you guys are pretty slim, you don't have a lot of redundancy in your office, and the teachers. But I can see if we start a program of training parents, I have been part of schools that, the parents had a committed number of hours in the classroom, and that was, like each day a different parent would come, it could have been, but if we start a program where someone can train a group of parents, and those parents will then, they start at kindergarten, they then therefore are trained all the way into the older grades, and every year we start with something. It may be a heavier lift at the beginning, but it might be something that I seem to be successful.
Respectfully, I think models like that are based on families that have mothers that stay home, which is just not the reality anymore.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled about relying on
Hold
the
on.
labor of women to perform essential education tasks in a public school.
Well, I didn't say women, I said parents.
Okay.
The model that I was present was in public schools in Somerville. So, it is doable. And in fact, I remember when I first volunteered in Lunenburg Public School when my son was in 3rd grade, someone questioned me, well, you work full time. And I'm like, all the parents in Somerville work full time, and we found, ways to volunteer, and it was my husband and I volunteered here. So it's doable, and it's a question, anyway.
So the only thing I was going to add just about paras, and I'm not an educator, so I would rely on Dr. Fortuna to help me with this, but my understanding is paraprofessionals also help in keeping kids in district. And so if these children can't get what they need in district at $22,000 a year, a para with an individual student, then we have to educate them, which we should, and they may instead access an out-of-district placement, which can cost anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million a year. So I think that's part of, the role of a paraprofessional. I don't mean to speak for our other school committee member, Emily, but she has a child with a disability who does have a para full-time. She has physical disabilities that she relies on her para very, very much. And, I would let Emily, if she was here, speak to that more as she knows, but she has said to me before, and and said in public that that's so vital to her role in school and her being able to be in school, so.
I don't think we're gonna solve this problem with paraprofessionals or with this. To me, it's just a question of, they're fairly inexpensive, but they're also hard to get.
Right.
And adding more that we don't have is really gonna help us get there. Budget-wise, we can budget for it, but as we've seen in the past, doesn't mean we're gonna actually spend the money because we don't want to have it. And if we have people that, and I understand if you get a job where I used to work, somebody get a job somewhere else and all of a sudden you put 9 months of training into that person. They were just getting where you wanted to go, and then they say, I'm leaving to go work at BJ's at the bagel shop. I said, oh my God. Well, that's life. We get the same problem here, and that's a toughie. So I think it's adding staff is good, getting staff is another issue.
And I had mouth to Laura, but she can't read my lips. I believe, I believe that this is the first year of this contract, right? Right. Yes. So any adjustments to wages that might be discussed, this is a 3-year contract, right. And we're in only our first year of it, just to kind of put that point on that.
Okay, moving on to the next slide. For Turkey Hill Elementary School, you may recall last year we merged 2 positions. We merged a special educator and an interventionist position, so we have one person doing both roles. What we found after doing that is that this is not an effective model for delivering instruction to our students. The special education side, in order to be in compliance and give the students what they require on their IEPs, that leaves her very little time to do the intervention. We have tried to backfill with some central office folks taking small intervention groups. that has not been sufficient to do this. So at Turkey Hill, we are looking for the restoration of that 1.0 interventionist. Norm would also love 2 paras, but he realized he could only have one position at this point.
Just so everybody's aware, the Turkey Hill is where the third and fourth grade are, the places where the declines are. This is
Correct. And then, even though we realize that early intervention is more successful, we have students that have needs now at the middle school. And it would be unwise of us to not have an interventionist in place at the middle school to try to accelerate their learning to close those gaps. We don't want to just give up and not do anything to address the gaps that our students have. So Mr. Santry at the middle school is looking for an interventionist as well. So you'll see that, that's why I gave you the big justification at the beginning for the interventionist positions. This is really where our need is, and we're being strategic about how we replace positions that we've lost to best impact student achievement and student outcomes for our town. It's unacceptable to me, and I would hope to others, that only 50% of our students are meeting expectations when it comes to literacy skills. A literate public is the best thing that we can have, and if our students are behind as early as kindergarten, those skills compound year over year, and those deficits get bigger and bigger. And so that's the heavy reason for investment in the interventionists at primary, Turkey Hill, and the middle school.
So an interventionist isn't assigned to a specific grade, they're assigned to a school. Is that okay? Can you speak to how many students one interventionist can work with, can impact?
That's a great question.
Well, if you think that there's 6.5 hours in the day, a half hour of, or 20 minutes of that is lunchtime, and
A half hour, 20 minutes a month week. For the interventionist, it's 20 minutes a month.
that's all that's required by our teacher contract.
Whip it in.
Well, I need it, my work is here, but still, 20 minutes, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And you think each group lasts about an hour and shouldn't have more than 4 students in it. It would be about 24 students.
So 4 at a time.
And
And they're.
But not every day, not the same student
Yes.
every day, right?
And so if, 54% of students are below grade level, we do not have the staff right now to meet the needs of all those students, which is very heartbreaking because there are some students that with a little bit of help could get above the line and get where they need to be and build that confidence and build those reading skills. But right now, we're just trying to do what we can for everyone, and we don't have the resources to address every one of those 54 students with extra interventionist work.
And we realize that the town doesn't have the resources to give us the one interventionist per grade level. That would be the ideal model, which is why we're trying to be very strategic in how we add positions back in, and why you're seeing a 27 through FY 27 through FY 29 plan and forecast to hopefully get us back to minimal staffing levels in a responsible way.
I just want to pull on, I didn't quite understand the answer to Renee's question. So, one interventionist at a school can positively impact how many children?
About 24
A day.
a day.
No, I mean in total,
In total, it depends.
in a grade year, like in a grade year.
I would say no more than 48, like if they took a group, if they had a group that needed intervention Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and had a group that needed intervention Tuesday, Thursday, I would say no more than 48.
So, and a school has 350 kids about,
There's about 100 kids.
so you need about 7 for this model, and half are below, so you need about 4 for this model to work.
We do, we need 1 for each grade level,
No, I think you need, 1 per grade level.
1 per grade level.
Is that what you're building towards?
That is what we're building towards.
So you answered one of the questions, it's not the same group of
So
students every day.
It doesn't have to be, we can work with scheduling, because not every student is gonna have the same intensity of need.
Right.
So you saw those students that were well below grade level, and then students that were just below. So we can, increase the schedule, we can shorten the intervention times, that's just really a round number that I gave you. There's more flexibility in there depending on the needs of the school.
And I know contracts probably get in the way, but is there any model that has like after-school sessions? Kind of like after-school tutoring,
So we applied for a grant this year to have, the company is called Ignite Tutoring, and what it is it's a virtual tutor for our first grade students that has excellent research outcomes and raising the skill level of those students.
It's virtual.
It's virtual with a real person.
Yeah. but
Yeah,
it's
it's
more
more
screen
screen time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, neither am I, but unfortunately, it's the way of the world right
I know,
now.
I know.
Can we work with like NHS students who would volunteer to do tutoring hours, even just as an additional resource for the younger students?
We could do that, the problem is the timing, right? When they're done with school, it would be at the very end of the school day, so there would be some time available in there. But there wouldn't be sufficient time, with using high school students during the elementary school day, but that's an excellent suggestion.
So a couple more questions. What, do these fall under the teachers' union, or?
They do.
Okay, and then just comment-wise, I mean, we're marching towards about $1.4 million to include this into our budgets.
We are,
So we need to recognize that.
yes, we do.
And then one other question is, I was surprised with the kindergarten, which basically means, before any schooling. Yet we have a library that is like, I went there today because I was off, and there's a lot of kids that kind of run around there, and it seems like something needs to be done entering school. And I wonder if there's some other kind of, we're behind to begin with, it seems like, right? That's what that data showed me.
Yes.
There's no pre-K?
No, there's
I went to
pre-K.
pre-K.
Yeah, we have pre-K.
It's just not universal.
Yeah, so not every family
Right.
take advantage of it, but we do offer pre-K. We are partnering with the library, to help with those story times. My working hypothesis with kindergarten is because they were born the year of COVID, their parents kept them close, and they didn't have that early language and vocabulary development that is actually a crucial reading skill. So schools are going to have to start thinking differently about how we make up for that deficit in the background that students are arriving to us with. Universal pre-K would be one of those ways that we could do that. We really want to be mindful of not creating more inequalities for families that can't afford to send a child to pre-K.
Is our pre-K still lottery?
It is, but we don't have enough enrollment right now, so anybody that signed up for pre-K got a pre-K slot. We have 62 kids that are enrolled in pre-K right now.
Wow. I feel like it was always used to be a wait list.
And
Like, when my
again,
kids were little, it was.
Yeah, my understanding is the hours are kind of terrible if you're a
It's
working
half-
parent.
It's a half day, so if you.
I mean, honestly, right, I mean, I'm
Very
new on the school
difficult.
committee, when we brought it up the other day, I was like, who can drop their kid off at whatever time and pick them up? Right, I mean, I'm not trying to be, it's
No,
just,
that's exactly what it is.
it's not because parents, I don't think, would take the resources, it's that the hours are like
Hours are not conducive to
having a working
families.
parent.
But
Mrs. Squires
developmentally,
changing
that's.
that.
Yeah, no, I know but it's hard.
It's developmentally appropriate for children that age, it's just not
A full day can be developmentally appropriate, absolutely. You can structure the learning in a way that's purposeful play. And so you're not losing that play element for students, and you're actually able to increase it without trying to hit the academic pieces.
We've done a lot of work on that in kindergarten.
Yes. Any other questions before we move on to the high school?
No, wait, I think we're good to keep going.
Okay, the first request at the high school is to add a 1.0 world language teacher. And this request is driven by two factors: meeting our graduation requirements and effectively managing class sizes. If we fail to add this position, we will be forced to make a choice between two detrimental options. We would either have to delay the start of world language instruction for all students until 9th grade. And this is because our rising 7th grade class is a bubble class. It's actually very large, and we currently don't have enough teachers to serve them in 8th grade. Or we would be forced to eliminate our Latin program entirely. And to put that in perspective, cutting Latin would displace 85 students who are currently enrolled in that course of study. The position is necessary to prevent that reduction in service. If we delay language instruction until 9th grade, that will be impacting about approximately 155 students.
How many world languages are we offering at the
We're
high school?
offering Spanish, French, and Latin.
I have a number question. On the slide, it lists one world language teacher for 72K, but the position's cost is.
You'll see it on the next slide.
Yes,
It's
there's more high
it's
school
continued.
positions.
Oh, okay.
High school positions continue.
Wait, so this is, part of this is to address that bubble year.
Yes.
After this bubble year moves through, would you see the same needs here, that it would be a choice between, or would you readjust the?
One of the things we would do is readjust. What's happening now in some classes is we have one teacher teaching 3 levels of a language. And we'd like to get away from that model if all possible, but that wasn't enough for us to force this choice to have this position included.
And this bubble class will be in the high school for the next 5 years.
Yep.
Right, so assuming they would still
Oh,
be
gosh.
student.
Well, in the.
Four.
They'll be, yeah,
High school next
they'll be utilizing, because they're in 7th grade now, so they'll be utilizing the languages for 5 years.
Are they all getting redshirted?
Yes, let's go to the next slide. The other, one other position, the high school has a slightly bigger ask, is the restoration of a .4 music teacher. And the strategic value of this is about maximizing the student experience and making sure every hour of the school day is used effectively. By restoring this position, we can directly expand our program of studies to offer more electives and performing arts opportunities, areas that we know keep students engaged and connected to school. The alternative is simple but problematic. If we do not add this position, we will not have enough course sections to fill student schedules. This will result in students being underscheduled, leaving them with empty blocks or excessive study halls instead of productive learning time.
Is that happening right now? How does that change?
It is happening right now.
Is it
We have
possible?
far too many students in study hall, and we are barely meeting the state's time on learning recommendations because of it.
Can you talk a little bit about how you would fill a .4 music teacher?
We currently have a .6 music teacher. We would just make that music teacher full-time.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's another question. It's about the insurance.
Mhm.
So, okay, Turkey Hill, the one interventionist, has insurance costs of that 31,2K. And the high school has 2 positions, but the insurance cost is still 31.
At .6 teacher, probably already has insurance.
Yeah, I can't talk to.
If they're at 19 and a half hours a week already, they're already.
They're already getting help.
So it's 2 positions being added, but only one. has
Only one
insurance.
has health insurance.
Yes.
Yes, I just wanna make sure. I don't want another 31K.
No, you're already paying it, right? You're
Yes.
already-
Yeah, okay.
Yes, and I just want to add that I thought Mr. Santry was very eloquent last year, talking about the lack of choices our high school students have because of many of the cuts. This obviously doesn't go too far, but the fact that there's kids who really have not a lot of options when it comes to what their high school career is looking like.
And I think when we talk about retention, it's
Yes.
providing those opportunities so they stay, because it just gets worse as students leave to go to different schools.
Yeah.
So I value that. My daughter wanted to stay in band in high school and stay in advanced math. She had to do a whole year of math during the summer because we only offer one class.
Right.
But I also want to, so I get it, I'm not disagreeing, but I also want us to not forget that we voted to be a small school district, and we are not going to have a lot of offerings. It's going to always be limited. So just as a point of like, let's not forget that, and that, Lunenburg will always be a small school district with very limited offerings. So
I can reply to that. The time on learning requirement, I'm very concerned about, given the amount of time that students are spending in study halls and are underscheduled for academics. I know there's been great debate in the community, people thinking that students need study halls because they're stressed out. But being a small district, we still are held to the same standards.
I don't disagree, it's just, and by the way, the music used to be huge when my kids were in school, and they used to have their homeroom had to be the auditorium because they had, close to 60 kids. So I get it. It's just the conversation of the meeting the basic need versus, adding a lot more offerings, because now we're just spreading us too thin when you add too many offerings and not enough of everything and not having enough students. We're not really serving the students the best when we try to expand their offerings too much.
We offer dual enrollment with Fitchburg State, or how many take that up?
I can get back to you on that.
Do we
When
push
do
that?
Students, we do.
Okay.
I
That's a
have
great
one young lady that's doing
opportunity.
this whole semester there. I know her, I'm sure there's others, but I know this student. All right, I saw it. Now you're seeing how we're getting up to 167,000 for the high school. We last year cut the bridge program at the high school, which is a transitional program for students that are having school adjustment issues that result in acting out behaviors in the high school. Again, it's something that we thought we would try for a year to not have this program. It's something that we realized this year was a mistake not to have this program. So the restoration of these positions are not just nice to have, they are critical infrastructure for our in-district programming. They specifically serve students who require significant social, emotional, or transitional support. The financial reality we face is binary. We either build the capacity to serve these students here in district, their own community, or we are legally required to fund their education elsewhere. The consequence of not restoring these positions is that the district and town may be forced to fund additional out-of-district placements. Historically, the cost of tuition and transportation for these external placements far exceeds the cost of hiring internal staff. This request is a proactive measure to control those costs while providing better local support for our students.
Before we cut that program, approximately how many students were served by it, I'm sure it would fluctuate.
I can go back and look. Right now, I think we're at about 16 students that could use it.
And that keeps students in the district, and at a human level, it keeps students in their school community.
That's 16 across all 12, 13 grades.
No, just at the high school.
Yeah, which was
And
The
this
high
is-
school program.
This is behaviors, correct.
That's right.
And just to give you an example, this number nearly knocked me out of my shoes the other day. I was talking to Mrs. Hanscom, and to add one band with a monitor to a transportation route that we can't regionalize, say 2 students weren't going to the same place, the cost of that to the district is $70,000. Transportation alone is $70,000.
For something that's worse for students.
So this is for a teacher and a para, or the bridge program. Was this called something else before? I don't remember bridge.
We've referred to it as something else in the cuts.
Guidance counselors?
Did you refer to it as a TLC program in the cuts?
At the high school level, I think we just called it interventionist. We did not refer to it as the bridge program in the cuts. That's what it was. And
Yeah.
I was very nervous about this cut because it was a very important program that keeps students in the district.
Yeah, and one of the things Mr. Santry spoke to us about at one of our meetings about his strategic goals is keeping kids in the classroom. It's an issue that has happened all across the country and across Massachusetts, but chronic absenteeism, and that kids not coming to school, and some of that is this program,
So there's one for the high school.
Yes. We have TLC programs at all of our schools, so we have programs for students with this challenge at all of our schools. But we cut the program at the high school last year, and
So it's currently 0 and this goes up 1.
yeah. All right. The next one is a district request. And you'll remember that I showed you the data about the number of English language learners increasing. I can get you more information about their primary languages and where they're currently enrolled. But currently, the addition of this specific position is driven by necessity and compliance. Our English language learner program consists of just 2 teachers who are stretched across all 4 of our schools. Meredith Weiss, for example, goes to all 4 schools in one day, catching kids as she can. She has to say no to teachers at the high school who want to have her come in and co-teach and shelter the students' English development because she simply doesn't have time to do that. And we know that's a best practice for teaching. This level of staffing is no longer sufficient. This new position is required simply to meet the minimal service levels that each level of English language development requires. The consequence of not approving this hire is clear. We will be unable to meet the suggested service levels prescribed by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And this is about ensuring we remain compliant with state guidelines, but more importantly, that we provide the basic level of service for our English language learners to succeed. Okay. One of the reductions that we made last year is we created a position where one of our high school assistant principals is a half-time high school assistant principal and a half-time athletic director. Lunenburg Middle High School faces a critical operational deficit. With a principal currently stretched across 2 distinct school cultures and over 250 athletes competing in a single season, our leadership capacity has reached its limit. The staff reductions in last year have not resulted in true savings. Instead, the cost has been transferred to our staff and students in the form of administrative burnout, diminished program quality, and most concerningly, increased liability regarding student safety. Restoring the full-time athletic director and assistant principal positions is essential to close these gaps. We cannot continue to compromise on oversight. This restoration is a necessary investment to ensure a safe, stable, and successful environment for the Lunenburg school community.
I do have a question on this one. So currently, the person in the position is fulfilling the role of part-time assistant principal. So what would be the guesstimated salary of the AD not also, so we just have already in place. So what would be guesstimated salary for the AD without having that?
If we go with a full-time AD, and there's some discussion whether we could make do with a half-time AD, but if we go with a full-time AD, I would say in the low 90s, high 80s.
So I very much struggle with a full-time AD idea. We didn't have an AD when we had more students. It was always a part-time. And I know we added the middle school sports, I understand that. But we used to have a part-time AD, and then we used to have a part-time secretary. And the idea of the secretary was that she would support that part-time position. And then we went on to a full-time AD, and we still kept the half-time secretary. And we have less students than we ever did. And then I hear that middle school sports only cost $6,000 extra a year. I'm like, these stories are just not mashing up. You know, you gotta have a straight. And we go back to, you know, what I said a moment earlier, like, we are a small school district. I think the Minuteman Vocational School, you know, they're a bigger school than us. They don't have a full-time AD. So I do support the idea of, you know, I think this building and 2 schools are too much for, you know, the principals that you don't have. But the full-time AD, it's a nice to have, and that's my personal opinion. And I cannot wrap my head around how we went from having fewer students and you know, and much more staff. And on top of that, we have added an athletic trainer that also, and I understand there's requirements, all of that. It's just a lot of adding that, you know, does not enrich the academic experience of the kids, and that's what we are here for.
I guess just to kind of piggyback on that, one thing that maybe if you haven't explored it, comboing the AT-AD. Comboing the AT and AD.
Yeah, that would be ideal. It's sometimes very difficult to find people for positions.
But I know if, my spouse being an athletic trainer, I will say if somebody was paying $90,000 to be an athletic trainer in 2025 and you had to be an AD on top, you're gonna have a lot of people jumping at that.
I think there's a lot more to being an athletic director than it was 20 years ago. It used to be teachers would get a stipend for like $6,000 to $10,000 and it was an easy gig. It's much more complex these days and very complex scheduling. And I think if you look at the surrounding towns or the comparable towns of in our league, I think you're gonna find that every school district is gonna have a full-time AD. It's not that you can get away with having a part-time AD or a teacher doing it.
So in 2019, we were paying the athletic director about $50,000 as a stipend. So it was not a $6,000 stipend. All the towns there but Lunenburg are regional, so they're all bigger than us. And you know, it's a question of need. Again, like this is not enriching you know, our students' learning ability. Like, let's have the sports, but I just cannot wrap my head around how you can justify the increasing staff when you have 200 less students on the district. And by the way, my kids were here. We used to have part-time, by the way, we used to have the part-time AD not 20 years ago. It wasn't until FY20, which is just 5 years ago. So that's a big difference between 20 years ago and now. It's really 5 years ago. And it used to be part-time. I just don't, it's hard to explain this to the voters, especially when we have asked for an override, and now, you know, we have other bigger asks. It's really, you know, if you're an athlete in Lunenburg, and if you want to be, you know, in the big leagues, you're not going to be in Lunenburg, and that has been proven by kids that are top performing in the state, and they moved out of the Lunenburg district so they can be in a larger district. But I'll tell you also, in the year, you know, that my kids were here, the ski team won the state champs, and we had one of the best female golfers when my son was, you know, in high school on the state. So you can accomplish that, but it's a question of, you know, value and what you're prioritizing.
I was going to ask some of this of when we go back to the school committee, I would like to know, a little bit more history of when we had a part-time versus a full-time. I agree adding an athletic trainer to me is an interesting conversation. I would like to hear some of that. But I just do want to say that sports are such a fabric of a community. And, when you go to a football game or you go to a soccer game and you see students, who are performing and working together on a team. And, I'm not an athlete. My kids are, but, I'm not an athlete. I never was. But it is something about belonging and being a part of a school district and working together. And I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I went to Lunenburg. I did fine. I think some of what we want to do is we want to raise well-rounded kids. You don't have to be, you don't have to go to an Ivy League school to be a success. And so academics are really important, but also being a well-rounded person is really important. And to me, I think that sports are a part of that, whether you participate or not, whether you're a participant or you're someone who watches.
So
Alright,
I didn't.
We're gonna go back to Dr. Forte.
Hold on. Excuse me. I didn't say sports are important. I am questioning the need of a full-time athletic director.
Okay.
And we went
going.
from, thank you, Chris. And we went from having a full-time music teacher, to now having 0.6 music teacher, to now having, we gotta talk about priorities of the district. We are reducing staff elsewhere, and we're increasing staff. And a very large number for a very small, it does not serve a lot of kids, So we just got to put our priorities and pick our priorities and fund the priorities. That's all. And I am not, and sports are important. I am not saying otherwise.
Yeah, and I just want to say about us being a small district, it's not like the kids in the school district today voted not to regionalize, or they were the ones who decided not to regionalize, or whatever it is. It's not like many of the adults who live in this town were the ones who decided at that time that we were going to stay as a small district. So I just think putting that on people 10 to 20 years after that happened, it's not really fair to the current population, because it wasn't a decision that they made.
If you have children in this town, you should do your research and say, oh, it's Lunenburg, this is the school system, that, you're either renting or buying in town. You kind of know what you're going to have. So it should be a surprise that we're not having 300 kids and all sorts of things that a larger school system would have, because we're a small town. So people I guess they come to this town because they like that. And if they don't like that, they probably won't come to this town.
Well, I think smaller towns too, they do co-ops, right? We have a hockey co-op. We have the ski team co-op. So I think you can get creative with it. And if you have enough kids to have a team, you have a team.
Actually, Lunenburg is pretty much, in a bunch of sports and a bunch of other, I would think we should try to do more of that.
Yeah, we don't want to take away the opportunities, because again, it comes back to the beginning where we talked about retention. Kids are going to leave. They'll leave if there's not the opportunities yet.
Setting up co-ops requires an athletic director. There's a lot of work involved in it. That would involve an athletic director doing work to administer.
Yeah, I would love to see the data on how many schools in the state, even public schools, don't have athletic directors or don't have full-time athletic directors.
Caesar, can I add one quick point? This is quick, I promise. One of the things that we're looking at, and one of the things, by the way, I think you've seen the school committee.
Yeah, I mean, Tony agrees with you, so.
You're invited.
Tony and I had this conversation.
You're invited to whatever they want to yell at me.
Yeah.
You're invited. One of the concerns that we have is we're watching what happened in North Middlesex Regional School. They built that beautiful stadium, and now they don't have a football team. It's a co-op football team. We want to make sure that we have somebody, and I don't think it needs to be a full-time person either, but we want to make sure we have somebody to make those outreaches for co-op. It is unlikely that we will be able to field a high school football team based solely on Lunenburg students in 5 years, given the number of students that play at the Bengals, the number of influx that we get from other sources.
True.
It's going to be really hard. I mean, we're going to be at the bare minimum.
How do you know?
Well, you look at the numbers going down.
Yeah, let's
Even if that's true, like, you'd do a co-op. You could
I
co-op
can't
with
play
that.
bagels. There's
So
no-
we would, you know, like having a co-op is something that we need to have somebody be able to do. I just think that it may or may not need to be a full-time person. But
Right.
we're gonna need to do more co-ops because, again, your point is correct. We are responsible.
Resource sharing is
Right.
important.
And the ski team co-op was developed prior to us having a full-time AD, and I think it was mostly led by parents. So,
Well, I think any creation of a sports team is going to be led by parents. There's already parents talking about trying to create a girls volleyball team.
Yes,
for-
I think that's
There's
wonderful.
a huge group of girls who want to play girls volleyball.
So when we come back during budget season, just whatever model you're proposing, let's have the data centered around the decisions that were thought through on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we can also look into the time constraints for the reporting and the requirements from the state as far as reporting and paperwork and the legal things that we're being asked to do, because that does keep increasing year after year.
One thing that we've had this year is we've had excellent budget management in athletics, just saying.
That we have this year?
Yes.
Yes. Super excited about having numbers.
Now,
Wonderful.
I have a few slides that disappeared from this deck, and it all has to do, now you look at your watch, Mr. Bernard?
It's buzzing.
And it all has to do with central office restructuring, so I'm going to try to talk you through them without you having the visual for them, for what I'm talking about. What we want to do is we want to eliminate 1.0 FTE reading coach. And we want to transition our 1.0 math coach to an instructional specialist where 60% of her time would be serving students and working on math skills, and 40% would be coordinating data and coordinating our multi-tiered systems of support. And we would move her from an administrative contract back to a teacher's contract. The cost to do that, believe it or not, is approximately $10,000. There is no cost for insurance because we are already paying insurance for this individual. And the reason for this is while instructional coaching is a proven model in theory, our internal data indicates that the current implementation is not yielding our projected return on investment. Does not mean that our coaches are not wonderfully talented, incredibly brilliant people. It means that the model that we're using of coaching cycles is not working for our teachers. What we're finding more effective is if the coach or this role can work elbow to elbow with the teacher in the classroom and service students at the same time. So we're excited about that. This is a strategic pivot. It's shifting the focus from indirect support to direct student services to maximize our budget efficiency. So that is one part of the central office
What was that?
restructuring.
The position again, I didn't write it down fast.
The new position is instructional specialist,
No, what was the old position?
math coach and literacy coach. So we'd eliminate the literacy coach altogether because we're adding all these interventionists, and we would transition the math coach back to the teacher's contract, so it'd be one less administrator that we had in the district, and she would be providing 60% direct services to students and 40% support elbow to elbow with the teacher in the classroom on implementing the first layer of instructional support.
And the cost for that would it be?
It's approximately $10,000. It's not a savings, believe it or not. She would make more as a teacher than she does as an administrator.
That math coach seems to have switched every year I've been on FinCom. If I remember back, I think to my first year, they were introducing it, and then it couldn't get filled, so they went with a different model, and then they went to it or something. It just,
That was the
it's
literacy
been all,
coach? Yes.
no, I remember math specifically.
Amy Resnick's been in the position for a while. Years. I think since its inception.
I
The
just
literacy
remember
coach
the
has
debate,
done that, yeah.
because being an engineer, I'm particularly interested in STEM, and I was surprised at how difficult teaching math was for many teachers, which is how that was kind of sold to us that year. So it just seems like we haven't gotten our arms around how to deal with that. It just seems that we're,
No, this isn't a capricious whim.
I don't think it is
This is
either.
really looking at our data and what our teachers are telling us. Our teachers have had major input into what I'm presenting tonight, and our teachers have said that this restructuring is something that would work better for them. And we are already doing it in some ways with the math coach that we have now. This would just increase the amount of direct service that she'd be providing to students.
okay.
The next part of central office restructuring is we want to reduce our data reporting manager to a 0.5 position. That will save us approximately $35,000. And we want to create a 1.0 assistant business manager position, which would cost about $4,000 for a net savings of $31,000. So the challenge that we have right now is we have some operational vulnerability. The current data and reporting manager role has grown way beyond its original design. The role currently balances high-stakes financial duties, accounts payable, warrant preparation, with critical state reporting and student information system management, which most of our state funding is based on. The risk is this dilution of focus. It's creating significant operational vulnerability. We are, in my experience, from the spring to the fall data reporting cycles, we are chronically late because this person just has so much on their plate. And Chris actually works way more than 40 hours, and it creates a vulnerability there because if Chris is not available for an extended period of time, say he wanted to take a vacation or a day off, not having some redundancy there in that office and some cross-training would really be detrimental to us. It has been detrimental to us, as you've seen in years past in growing this position. So we want to create an assistant business manager position who would be responsible for warrants, would be responsible for our accounts payable, and should we have a shift in payroll responsibilities, that would also land in the business office. And it looks like that's coming for us, given some of the town transitions that are happening, and given the size of our payroll for the community. And then what we would do is we take those data compliance responsibilities. That's not a full-time job. We would take that and create a half-time position for that.
Can I ask a question about that? Those duties that you just talked about kind of align a lot with what our admins and our clerical union are doing for across our, I mean, I know it's a different volume for the school district, but you see that more as a managerial or assistant manager type position versus an administrative assistant type position?
The assistant business manager?
Yeah.
The
But you
APs.
just talked about,
AP.
It's
right, but you're talking about, if you're talking about AP and, payroll, doing warrants, things like that, you think that's
yes.
more of a managerial?
Yes, because where all that goes, that our administrative assistants are doing, comes up to my office, and then there's like 20 more steps that have to get processed before that. So it's very different than what's happening in the buildings. In the buildings, they're more collecting the data. We're processing the data, preparing the data, transmitting the data to the town.
Excuse me, verifying contracts and all, yeah.
Yes.
So it's like, it's instead of it coming through each department, it's kind of where it sits when it comes over to me for like processing recs, I guess. It's more of that, like,
Are there tools or systems that could be put in place to help with this?
Not in the way that the town is currently functioning. There's definitely room for modernization. I was signing our payroll warrants today, which the school committee needs to sign at our next meeting. But I was signing our payroll warrants today, and they're all still paper timesheets.
So this seems like maybe there is tools and systems that could be.
There are tools and systems. I think we wouldn't realize a net savings if we went in that direction. It wouldn't eliminate a position. Somebody would still have to do the work with those systems. It could never be fully automated.
I think, something that I just heard today, we have some meetings next week just on payroll specifically, but one of the things that I heard today is the way that our payroll person for the town was able to accomplish some of these things is she was taking them home after the workday and doing them in front of the TV. And so some of the reality here is probably the same in the school, that things are getting done, but because people are bringing home their stuff. They're bringing it home and processing stuff at home because they can't get it done in the workday.
Mr. Chair, can I respond to Mr. Marisco? One of the things that we tried to do in regard to updating systems was we had tried to propose a cashless policy. That went over like the Hindenburg. And so there are many tools that we could use. And we have tried many times and go different ways. But we need an array of thoughtful responses in opposition that is sometimes surprising. The cashless policy would have streamlined exactly some of what you were talking about with receipts being still done on paper, and then you're like, we get the receipt, we scan the receipt, and we send the scan, so like, it's kind of crazy. So we are definitely exploring those options. We had put forward a policy, public opposition was too much, and so we have to go back to the drawing board. But yes.
There are systems, but you're right, we will get opposition to them, and it's something that would have to be done townwide. This wouldn't just be a school project, it'd have to be done in collaboration with the town.
Payroll, we're still transitioning at some point to employee self-service, I would imagine, and that is school and town.
Part of the conversation next Monday.
That would modernize it a lot.
It should at least create some efficiencies that it will take less time and be able to allow people to look and audit things pretty quickly.
And I don't know if you've looked at our individual warrants. It is a large number of warrants from a very diverse number of places. Sometimes it is just a handwritten form. It's a little bit harder to simply automate. Someone needs to look at everything, and it's such a large variety of bills of different formats, of receipts taped to pieces of paper, of parents submitting forms for reimbursement. It's such a large number, and some of them only happen once, so it's not, we are looking into automating it, because Tony likes the automation part, hates printing paper.
No better.
But it's not that simple. It is definitely, there are a lot of.
I'm more optimistic. I think we can do this. And I think that you're correct. I just offer the cashless policy as an example of this was not a technological problem. This was not an implementation problem. This was people in town didn't like it. And so,
large number of users who use things in different ways.
Sure. Any change management is going to have opposition, just because it's changed, but that doesn't mean you don't do it.
100% agree.
Right, Mr. Menard, I couldn't agree with you more. I just don't think that this is a next year.
That's fine, it was just a question.
Yeah, and I do think that it would require the town manager and I to work very closely together with all of you to make it happen for the number. So that's it for my central office restructuring plans. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, I know. Oh, the total cost is $95,000. And the insurance cost would,
That was from the assistant principal.
that's for the assistant principal. The total cost, hold, please, for the central office restructuring, I'm gonna do the big number in a minute. For the central office restructuring is, we would gain back $31,000, and the insurance cost would be $31,281.
Not even.
Yeah. Drum roll, please. Chris?
I think I lost that slide.
You lost that slide too?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
How can you
This
lose-
has been happening to us all day. Each time we go into it, we're missing slides.
I swear they were there this morning. when
Yeah,
because I was
Sorry.
This is why I don't think we will.
Yeah,
I was trying to find my
it's
castle version
it's
of
so
my
odd that this keeps happening.
You should print out paper for all of
Oh,
us.
no.
Tony would be so happy.
paper version.
I can't anchor the chair of the school committee.
That was well timed, it was well timed.
The estimated total cost of all these restored positions and restructuring, assuming hiring level and all positions take the highest level insurance, is $979,842, which I realize is a huge ask. 979,842.
And that's over FY '26 current.
979 what? I'm sorry.
842.
That's including insurance?
That's your, hold on, but to be clear, that's the positional changes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not your plus overall health insurance. It's just the health insurance for these
Right,
positions.
the
Yeah,
average,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you gave us that number though at school committee the other night.
Did
Didn't
I?
you? You did? The
Well, Chris
total?
and I have been working on this for a while.
Yeah.
So,
No, you gave us the total including everything, I thought.
oh, we did. We're gonna get to that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Chris is taking
Sorry, I'm
over.
rushing you.
That's just the first one.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
about
sorry.
4%.
Yeah, it was 1.4, wasn't it?
Is that about
Yeah.
what
No.
it's on for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
It's just big, but I actually thought it was lower than I thought it was gonna be.
And this
Oh,
is
man.
not fully restored cuts that were made last year.
No,
Oh, no, no.
that's gonna be a 3-year process.
Yeah.
Yeah, this does not fully restore us to where we were last year.
No.
So I'm gonna give it back to Chris, and he's gonna do some year over years and some summations for you.
So for FY '25, I won't get into every single number for you, but I will say that the available budget as of today was $556,136, or 97.8% used. And that was for FY '25.
Chris, what are the negative transfer?
I'm actually looking into that. I couldn't wrap my head around that this morning. I'm not sure if they were transfers out into grants or whatnot, but I'm currently looking into that right now. And I knew that was gonna come up tonight.
Did you? We'll get back to you on that.
For FY '26, the total budget, including the $500,000 in free cash, was $26,287,474, with salaries totaling $17,110,394, and expenses totaling $9,177,080.
Chris,
Yeah.
just about the negative transfers, I learned last year that once they put a budget in, if they need to make an adjustment to the budget, it doesn't, you can't, so it looks like a transfer out.
Okay. Thank you. And then the next two slides are a 3-year comparison that we have for FY '27 through FY '29. And I'll get into the numbers for FY '27 first. So for the FY '27 budget, the salaries are projected to be $17,376,401. And that doesn't include adding any of those requested positions.
That does not include the 900.
Yes, it doesn't include it.
So this is added.
So this is level, basically, level staffing.
like staffing.
is the 17.
Yeah.
Does it include any assumptions around the two contracts that you're negotiating, or does it have them at the FY '26?
It has them at the FY26 rate.
Thank you.
So for the projections so the teacher's contract is up in FY27. And for FY28 and 29, I gave steps to the teachers based off of the previous year contract, but I didn't give them a cost of living adjustment, just because it has to be negotiated. For expenses for FY27, we're projecting $9,875,772 for a total FY27 budget of $27,252,173.
Does that include the new positions?
No.
That
This is
27.
supplies.
What?
This is
That doesn't-
materials.
Oh, but the 27 number, the
It
27,252.
doesn't include the positions that were
173.
requested today.
Okay.
include the cuts,
Doesn't include,
the cuts that adjusted?
no, not for central office.
Projections for the FY28 budget, salaries total $17,767,838. Expenses for FY28 are projected to be $10,695,991. And one of the reasons that the expenses have gone up dramatically is due to health insurance, increase in special ed costs, just to name a few.
I just want to jump in here on health insurance. When I presented on health insurance a while back, maybe in October it was, I had said that we were told to budget for the same 14.8%. You will hear that Chris has budgeted for 20, and the reason is that we were told in our meeting with our insurance advisor that that's what we should be, when with the insurance company, that that's what we should be budgeting for. So we are hoping for that number to be less when we find out what the actual number is in January for the whole average of the pool, and then we'll find out our specific number sometimes in February. But we're hopefully safe at 20, but you can see it's getting really, I mean, we used to be thankful for a 6%.
Did they say 20% over all 3 years?
No, they said 20% for the first year.
Okay, because you're,
I think
It's
it's
20
over
over.
3 years.
Yeah, oh, so it wouldn't be going down in future years,
No,
it
no,
might
no.
just be worse. It could be 20, 25.
No, is it?
We don't know what the second,
No.
third.
I'm just saying what's in here.
So what's in there is
20,
20 year over year over
Right,
year.
and, but our advisors did not give us anything.
They
They
will
do
not
1 year at a
ever go
time.
more than 1 year, right?
So if I can put in, and when we look at the FY '27 budget, that number, $27,252,173, that is in effect our level service budget. We cannot sustain any more cuts in personnel. I can't emphasize that enough. We cannot sustain one more cut in personnel. Our achievement scores are showing us that the needs of our students are increasing. We are running as lean as we can. A class of 22 to 23 kindergartners without a para, classes of 25 and 26 at Turkey Hill. We're having trouble fitting kids in classrooms. So I just wanted to emphasize that point, that is the crucial thing about this budget. We cannot sustain any more personnel cuts.
So you said the achievement scores, you didn't show the achievement scores.
Yeah, I showed you the reading scores, I didn't show you the math scores.
But we didn't show it over time, and how that's being affected over time versus the,
I can tell you,
Positions.
one of the things that
I'm not doubting you.
yeah,
I'd just like to see the data associated with
I
that.
can certainly do that. I can certainly look that up. And if you want to do it before I get it to you, you can go on the Department of Elementary and Education website, and they'll allow you to go back as many years as you want.
Yeah, okay.
So, Dr. Bertunet, if I take that FY '27 budget of 27.2 and add the number you gave us, 979, 842,
That's our needs-based budget.
so that already has the expenses
Mhm.
forecast budget out for
Forecast.
FY '27?
That's
Did we
fine.
get to the total yet for increase for FY '27?
Percentage increase?
The amount, because you talked about the 979, 842 being for staff only. What is the total for,
The total for 26 to 27?
yeah,
That number
Oh,
right there
okay.
is the
27.
level services,
all right.
the 27, right? Am I,
Yeah, you're correct.
the 27,252, 173
Yeah.
is level services. That's $1 million about over
Yeah.
last year.
And that's with the 20%.
Increase in health insurance
Oh.
costs.
What is the amount? So it would be the difference?
It's about $600,000, I believe.
So I think, so it's the presentation done? Like, I don't want to.
I was just gonna do FY '29, but you can.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll hold off.
I think Anna's point is that we had the 27,252, we added in the 979, 842, but we haven't dealt with the non-salary level service changes.
The expenses are all level service.
Yeah.
They're just level.
Yeah. With the assumptions that we gave you before.
Okay.
And lastly, for FY '29, salaries are projected to be $17,881,874. And expenses are projected to be $12,309,994, with a total FY '29 budget of $30,060,551. And I just want to note one thing about the FY '27 budget to FY '26 budget. Today we calculated the percentage increase, not including free cash that the town gave us for a one-time purpose. It was about 5.6%. So that's just a fact that we can know
For the level service.
for the level
For the
service.
level service. Does that include the health insurance or no?
It does.
So if we took the health insurance out, what percentage of an increase? You don't know that off the top of your
I
head. I'm
don't
just
know.
thinking that would be a number that would be interesting, right? Because we've talked about how the health insurance is built in to our budget versus all the other departments. So I would just be interested, it's a 5% increase for us this year, but that includes our health insurance increase. When the other departments came in front of us, they would give a percentage increase, but they're not including their health insurance. So I would just want to make sure we're apples to apples in that sense. It's less than 5.
On the chart where it said FY '26 budget summary, and it said salaries, expenses includes $500K in free cash, all that free cash was in salaries, is that right?
I believe about 443,000 were salaries, and the remainder were in expenses.
So if my math is right, the needs-based FY '27 over the FY '26 budget, and Chris, you might have this number already,
Yeah.
$1,944,541.
Sounds about right.
But that's,
That's
One
the
point
increase.
nine five.
but that's
1.95.
What's that as a percentage?
not counting the 500 that you have, right?
I would have to do the math. I'm not sure of the exact figure off the top of my head right now.
So, because if I subtract 27,252,000 and change minus
The 25,
if I subtract the 26,287,
yeah.
it's only 964,000. So it's definitely with that increase is not counting the 500 that you have.
Correct.
So just to clarify, the total FY '27 needs-based budget is $28,232,015.
What is it?
Is that right?
That's what
Is
I'm
that need-based or level?
So that's
Need-based.
need-based. So the need-based budget, to say it again, is $28,232,015, and that's the level service budget plus the $979,842.
Correct.
Okay.
And the number we're comparing it against, right, is the budget for this year, which includes the free cash.
Correct.
Well,
But when Chris did the percentages, he took the free cash out.
Okay.
Because we knew that was a one-time cost. Yeah.
Okay.
One time, yeah.
so, one thing that I think, so I'm sorry, I'm scarred from previous years of school budgeting. I don't participate like you guys, but I watch your meetings.
You were invited to all athletic director discussions. I sent you an email.
So when I'm fighting with Tony.
No, so
I'm just kidding.
One thing I would love, if we could have a conversation, is to really isolate the health insurance increase that you have. And I'll tell you why. Because when we started talking about the override, what was discussed in January, why we needed an override, and the built conversation until we had the override and it passed, how we used the money, it was not how it was told that we were going to be using the money in January. So for example, the health insurance was one that in January, started with almost $700,000 in increase, and ended up being $368,000 by the time all said and done, because we didn't have the increase. So I think by isolating that number to the number that we expect will allow us to, because it's not just the school, it's the town as well, right? We're gonna have to cross that bridge together, liking or not, so then we can really focus on the needs that we have for the staff, in order to service the kids. And when we finally get that number in February, we'll be able to make the adjustments to the townwide budget related to insurance. But really isolate that number so that we don't start in January with, we need 1.4 and run with that, but then it comes to the end, the insurance was really not 700, maybe it was 300,000. And obfuscate what the kids really need. Because that's what I want, is really like, what is that we need to deliver for the kids? So, at the end of the day, I don't care which bucket it is, it's all one big bucket, the way I see. So, it's just if we could really call out the number that we're expecting for insurance, and if that number goes away, we don't have to do with it, or not as much. So we can really focus on the kids and what the kids need.
I think to piggyback on that, I think what would be helpful is if you have your sheet available as we get closer to, like, your roster, not with names, but your roster of X people on this plan family, X people on this plan individual, all the way through, and then we're holding these assumptions. Because one of the things that we may want to do, which is where we get crazy with budgeting sometimes, is that if we've talked about, 4 instructional folks? It's adding on 4. So let's say we're adding 4, yes, for budgeting purposes, it's one thing that you want to assume that they're coming in at the highest. But if we're holding 4 family plans, we may not want to put, we may or may not want to put a 20% increase on 4 family plans, because they're not all coming in taking 4 family plans, right? So just to be able to have that, because that's something that I did for mine too, so that we can, because it's such a big cost driver, that we can really be a little more surgical in dialing up or dialing down the health insurance.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So I looked at the last bill that we received for health insurance, and I believe it was 166 staff members currently are enrolled in some form of health insurance for the district. Excuse me. So that's just one fact.
So that's about
What percent of staff?
About 50, 60%.
It's about 60%.
Yep. Something else was not part of your presentation that I would be remiss to not bring it up, but I have brought it up via emails, is really our how we have made Lunenburg Public Schools available to out of district. So here's something else that on all of these funding conversations we have not talked about. About five to 6 years ago, part of our cherry sheet was we had about $500,000 in kids that were coming to Lunenburg. That's now around 100,000. The town, like, as a budgeting thing, we have had to absorb that $400,000, right? We had to absorb that. And this is a school committee decision that has affected our budget on top of, like, I just did a calculation between FY24 and FY26. The town has funded the Lunenburg School District not, just directly 15.8%. So the town's showing up. So I think, the school committee needs to own up that this is something, they make a decision, and we have less kids than we ever had before. We should be making Lunenburg Public Schools available to out of district.
So isn't there a cost associated with, that's more than we get sometimes?
Yes, oh, definitely. We get $5,000 for each student we accept. Our per pupil right now is around $13,400.
So why would we want to accept more kids that costs us $13,000 and we only
Because
get 5 back?
It's not a per kid. We have an infrastructure that, right now, let's say, I'm just going to use.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very familiar. I'm only so familiar with this being brand new. So I
hear it. So we have an infrastructure that, can educate 1,500 kids or 1,600 kids. And that's the, you're getting added with the same infrastructure.
So
and
I think,
strategic.
yeah, so I think you have to be strategic. So for example, my nephew is in a class in the 4th grade. He has 28 kids in his class. So I would not be supporting any 4th graders coming to this school because, I mean, my nephew already has 28 kids in his class. My son is in 2nd grade, and I know we've been letting 2nd grade kids in because he has reported back to me that there are 3 or 4 new friends in his grade. So I do know that strategically we have been, because I think the 2nd grade just happens to be a grade that's not as big. I would defer to you, but.
Yeah, we made that decision last year.
Like last year, yeah.
We looked at the smallest class sizes and open seats.
All the slots? Do enough people want to? Yes, we did. For 2nd grade, we filled all the slots, but what we did not take into consideration, and this is why 2nd grade is large, is we have move-ins.
Yep.
So there's a town that closed a school nearby, and people have left that town, moved to Lunenburg. So yes, we had a select number of school choice spots open. However, we also had 6 move-ins in addition to school choice. So now our numbers are exceeding what we thought of when we allowed school choice. And the primary school right now is 401 students in the primary building. Last year I had 384. So when we're talking about numbers going down, maybe overall in the district, but not at the early levels, they keep on showing up and they keep on coming, and we can't close our doors. So I think we need to be really strategic when we think about this. We're working with less staff than we've had. There's been cuts over the years. Everyone's valuable. I welcome anyone to come down to the primary school. It is interesting. Tony's been down to see it.
It's bananas.
Actually, if you guys would like to, I
started
come volunteer in the school.
I was not, I have looked quite a bit on this subject. So for example, Hudson, I actually sent them an email and asked, we lose about 20% of between our 8th grade and our 9th grade, we lose about 20% of our students. Like the class size decreases. And I think some goes into, Monty-Tac and stuff. So, Hudson, for example, they have a policy that they always have space in the high school. So, I'm just thinking of possibilities because it's important to, over time, kind of have a policy how we handle these things. But, it's just take the responsibility and please just, I'm asking you to consider that now the town is the town side of the budget is absorbing an extra $400,000 that 5 years ago, we did not have to.
Can
So-
I clarify the Hudson piece before you go on, Anna? They open up rooms in 9th and 10th grade only. They don't accept people in grades 11 and 12.
So
Unless things have changed, but they've also lost over 1,000 students in the past 10
Right.
years.
I think Lunenburg historically has always offered the high school. It's more if people don't want to come at high school, they want to come at the elementary level.
Specifically thinking of the empty slots we had at the high school for.
Yeah, we don't fill the high school slots.
one
historically.
other thing that I think for staff in particular, that I know Westford does this, which is if you work in the town and if you work in the school district, you can school choice your kid in. And Westford being a top tiered school district, there are a lot of staff that choose to work in Westford. Westford's not known to pay well, but a lot of people choose to come into Westford so that they can bring their kids into the school. And that's, I can see a paraprofessional who's living in Leominster might want to bring their kids to Lunenburg.
Can I make one? One of the things, all of the things you said resonate with me. We voted to increase the number of school choice seats last year. Over the previous year, I think that we had some spots that were vacant. The one thing that I want to make sure, and I think the presentation did a good job of this, is that while attendance has gone down, it's not gone down like a ton. And by and large, our cost drivers are not like an additional 30 students. Our cost drivers are really tied up in health insurance, increase in special education costs, increase in transportation costs, and then increase in utilities. So like those are our big drivers. Like Michael Ray Jeffries, when he was on select board, used to say this all the time, and it's like the days in which school districts had cost drivers based on finely tuned students, that's largely over to with one exception, and this is really important. This is one of the things that we've been talking about with the Chapter 70 funding. Because Lunenburg is so small, when students move in or students move out, it can have like 2 or 3 students either way, especially when you're on the line, can have a huge impact on the budget. So my first year on school committee, we crossed and Brian, you were on there before I was, we crossed the threshold by adding 2 students in 1 year. It like went from, we were in one group of funding to another group of funding. And so like, while there is some relationship between the number of students and costs, it's largely things that are sort of independent of 100 students either way, except for the Chapter 70 funding. And so like, the problem is the formula doesn't favor a community like ours.
Right.
And so the place where 1 or 2 students does have an impact is a place where we are losing out to other school districts with different demographics. And
I just did a quick check of our enrollment. In 2015, we were at 1,553 or 55 students, I forget. We are currently at 1,563. So we haven't lost a large cohort of students over the past 10 years, at least from where we were 10 years ago. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and when you look at, I missed part of that, sorry, my kid needed a good night text. But when you look at actually the places around us, we have fared remarkably well. I mean, North Middlesex, a lot of their finance issues are because of diving enrollment. I mean, when you look at the Chapter 70 formula.
But it snowballs, like one affects the other.
Exactly, because as enrollment goes down, you get less money, you can offer less, more kids leave. It just makes it worse.
And our birth rate in Massachusetts is not going up. So the fact that we are having essentially low or slightly increased enrollment means that we are doing, and this is based on the number of move-ins, right? And the move-ins have a lot of risk, as we talked about at special town meeting.
Yeah.
So like, it may be that like we're seeing these bumps, but it's not, our budget is not impacted by 10 or 20 or 30 kids. And so I think that looking at the cost drivers like Chris and Dr. Fortuna outlined, we can see that they're really sort of things that
we don't have much control over.
And again, it's a ask, and
Okay.
I'm pointing out numbers that, was part of our cherry sheet and no longer is, and is in your control.
Yeah,
And all I'm asking is to please, have a consideration.
absolutely.
Chris, can you hop back to an early slide that you had on utilities? I had a question about that, as soon as the chair said utilities and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question about FY '26 budgeted versus the actuals.
Yeah.
Are you just thinking that between electricity and heat, you'll get a wash there? Because the actual on electric of FY '25 is so high, I'm wondering why you're budgeting lower, and then vice versa, heating is so much lower than budgeted. Are you just hoping that they're gonna wash?
So,
I know you didn't budget this.
so I know that we're locked in for a rate with, I believe it's EDG Energy. It's 0.1177 kilowatts
Sure.
per hour, I believe. And
That that scares me.
I know, right?
You remember
This is
number.
why we
so I would have to look at the contract when it ends, but I don't foresee electricity going down. But I am looking into the heating costs just because when I looked into the general ledger in Munis, it showed that it did go down. So I'm hoping it washes.
The other thing too is pay attention through the winter heating season with those green community upgrades that you had to see if that you can get some actual usage savings.
Okay.
So the presentation went through like a strategy, tactics, measures, actions, that kind of approach, which I like. I'm happy you did that. But it focused on the literacy portion of it. Is there anything related to math or other subjects, and when are they outside of this 3-year planning window?
As we add more interventionists, we'll be able to address our math needs, but our literacy needs are greater right now, so part of the strategy is to prioritize literacy.
But you see that, like 3 years from now, you're gonna start attacking math, so that, I'm kind of looking towards, what might be our challenges leading into this budget season, and it may be around, what did you say, 3 million?
Well, if I just do a loose back of the napkin guesstimate here, we have about 2 million here, 500,000 on fire department and 500,000 elsewhere. So we're looking at baseline without, this is all back of the napkin, we're looking at very loose 3 million right now.
So my question would be, and I asked how minutes to look at it, that's 27, is that also, then we can live within our 2.5 override for 28, 29, but then you're gonna come in with kind of another step up basis in services, I'll just call them services, additional services, such that we're looking at a future override, or the future challenge at least, or, you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I
Like
do know what
the
you're
math
getting at.
portion of this, or other portions are gonna come in down the line. I wanna take this long view of things, especially in this meeting with the three groups here.
I think my best answer to that question is that our population of high needs students is increasing. As that increases, our requirements for staff will increase, hopefully not at the same rate as the high needs students. But the alternative piece is we hope that the addition and the restoration that we've talked about over the next 3 years, we hope that that starts to close achievement gaps, so we won't have the same needs 3 years from now that we have now, because our students are achieving at higher levels. Does that answer your question?
Maybe.
Do you view them as utility players so that you'll be able to pivot them? Like, okay, we've got our literacy kind of more, now we can pivot them to more 50-50, is that?
Yes.
It's unfortunate. One thing that I wanted to ask, I know the answer, but I want to make sure. To answer something of Mr. Bernard, my understanding, and this happens to be the case in my house, is that when my son presented with issues related to math and reading, once the reading stuff was worked on, the math stuff followed in a way that outsized the amount of intervention he received, because in early education, the math is a lot of reading.
There is a lot of language and reading based in our math and our MCAS scores. I honestly think of the math portion as a reading test. Can kids read the genre of application problems, and are they able to do it? So I do agree with what you're saying.
Does that, I mean, that answers some of it, like, I'm really proud of him. Like, he started out having, deficits in both. He got his reading scores up, and his math deficit vanished. And it was, obviously I think he's an extraordinary kid, but it happened in 1 year. So, I think that what we're seeing in the numbers, especially in the lower grades, is that a lot of what looks like low achievement in math is actually low achievement in reading that's impacting math. And so when we fix the reading, the math follows without any sort of additional expenditure. Because
I also think kids are extraordinary. My kids have struggled with their reading, and once they get it, it's amazing, right? So once they get what they need, it really is incredible, that they can. And, Henry, my oldest, he had benefited from the MTSS teachers over the last few years, and he's really doing great this year. So, but I'm scared to know where he would be without them.
I felt that too. Where would this?
Right, and some of those positions are no longer there, right? But yeah, no, it really.
Core reading skills have to impact learning everything.
Everything.
Well, that's what it is.
And
And now they can read and like learning.
The literacy is foundational to everything else. We can put all the money we want into math, but without the literacy foundation, the math's not gonna come.
I don't think anyone's second guessing that you've prioritized the right thing here. My only question is that if we're looking out budgets for the next 3 years and beyond, is this gonna start to get us on course and we can stay on course, health insurance aside? Or is there just something else that's gonna come out in 3 or 4 years that is kind of simmering in your mind and you need to have strategies related to it, but you're pushing them on?
I think, Chris, can I try to rephrase what you're saying? I think he's saying would this $2 million, $3 million, $2 million bump solve problems for years to come, or are we going to come back in 2 years and need $2 million more? Is that, or am I not?
No. I mean, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think it's a good question. I think you made a wonderful presentation. I think there's a lot of new positions here. Is this where we want to be? It's not where I want to be, but I also think Dr. Fortuna is trying to be realistic. I know it sounds like a really big number, but I respect that she is trying to not, blow the number out of the wall,
It's hopefully a very somewhat achievable number. It is not overreaching. We are not even asking for next year to go back to what we lost the year before.
Right.
We're still 2 steps backward and then 1 step forward. We're not going to.
I think it's a good question, because I don't know that we can say, that I personally can say.
The issues are always, when you look at what this town and every town in Massachusetts deals with is our resources, our revenue is pretty much defined.
Right.
And we've been lucky in our town in that one of the reasons why we haven't had an issue with student population is we're growing. Unlike some towns, we're growing pretty fast.
Yeah.
We're the second fastest small town growth. So, but our students aren't growing, so there's more houses with less kids in them.
Yes.
Or the same number.
Same number of kids.
So we went through a period of the last few years of higher inflation, higher than we had in a lot of years. And health insurance being one, but others, drove all our costs up. Revenue, 2.5 didn't say, but if inflation's 4%, then you can grow it back. No, we don't. We don't have that. Now, they might change the rules on us and how they calculate and other things. We're talking about it. But if this, so over the next few years, if our inflation, with health insurance and all that, is 2.5%, then we'll find that we'll be doing better. We'll say, aren't we great? That's not really. So what we've done the last few years is we've had one override, But we've also had to make some drastic cuts.
Yeah.
Why? Because we couldn't pay for all the things. And that's still the case we are here today. I saw all these things that, everything was good things for the kids, for the fire department, for everybody. The question is, can we afford it?
Yep.
And if we can't, then the decisions that we make about what we value, and that's, and do we want to do another override? Those are the, revenue and the resources. And I think for not only the various boards, but also for the department heads and the town manager, and for the school committee, and for the finance people and the superintendent, is to think about various different options and plans. Okay, we got this amount of money this year for the school. Okay, what do we think is the most important? Because I'll be honest, if it comes to the finance committee, I don't know. I mean, my kids are all grown up. I have educators in my family, and I ask them all sorts of questions, and for 10 teachers, I get 10 different answers. So I am really going to rely on the profession, the people that the town hires, that are supposed to know these things and what is best for the kids, and I think and for the town. So that's where I am going to be pushing my voice over the next 6 months.
So one other, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to take another stab at Mr. Menard's question.
Sure.
I think the district right now is at rock bottom. I think we cannot go below a level service budget and be able to offer any type of quality education to children. So I'm thinking that you won't have any big surprises. I'm not planning on lobbying any big grenades, other than the fact that I have to tell you, we need to maintain at least this level service. And we really need, not want, need the positions that we outlined tonight.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's the surprises that is what no one wants, right?
Yeah.
It's, you bring the bad news in its totality as soon as possible, and then we collectively work towards what the solution are.
Yeah.
Just like Tom said, with weighing the options. Maybe we can't do it all, but we gotta make our decisions. But when the surprises come year after year after year, that are anticipated surprises, that's when you kind of get into the problems. You're not managing your budget, you're just reacting to it.
Yeah, if we can maintain the staffing levels with adding that staff, I think we'll be in decent shape.
So one last area of the budget that I noticed has grown quite a bit between the past few years is the social workers and psychologist services. In FY '24, social workers and guidance was at 460. For FY '25, the final expenditure was 771. That's a $300,000 increase, or 67%. For psychologists, FY '24 was 190. FY '25 was 287. That's a 90,000 and a 48% increase. I know some of these, increases came during COVID. We needed to support the kids, but you also talked today about high needs students. So is there any, and also during this time, I know as a district, we put a lot of emphasis in supporting the kids on emotional learning. Are these two, groups of staff, do you see them as needing to continue them? Or can we go back to some pre-COVID numbers on these services?
We need to continue them.
Okay.
We are at the base of what we can do to function and offer students what they need. If we did not have those positions, we would be losing kids to out-of-district placements.
Okay.
Yep, there are IEPs that specifically require school psychologists.
It was a question. And is there any of these services, like psychologists, that can be refunded by insurance companies or no?
The town does recoup some money through Medicaid reimbursement. Currently, I don't, because we don't see it, I don't know how much it is. But the town does recoup some costs through Medicaid reimbursement. We do time studies where they have to kind of report what they're doing every hour, and then Medicaid decides what can be billed.
Where does that money remit to?
Probably a general fund. I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Okay, so that goes back to the town.
Yes.
There was some talk about bringing on BCBA's.
No. That would be.
No, theoretically, yeah, there would, that's,
That would depend on how our student needs evolve. We have one BCBA
We have
in the
one.
district now.
one BCBA.
I think Juliana would love to have two, just given the rise in the definition of children with autism.
Can you remind me what BCBA stands for?
The high-
Board Certified Behavior Analyst.
Thank you.
And we cut one last year, correct?
Yes.
In the budget cuts, we had to cut one.
And we only have one of the entire district?
Yes.
The line item that you were talking about was school psychologists and social workers. We cut over the last 2 years a social worker at Turkey Hill and a social worker at the primary. So currently, we are working with one social worker. I can give the number at the primary, one social worker for 401 students. So that position was eliminated. And I believe the primary building was eliminated first, and then last year we eliminated at Turkey Hill, so now you only have one. And I don't know their numbers off the top of my head.
You are correct about that, which you knew you were correct because you're Mrs. Spire.
Social worker service?
You're also sharing a .5 psychologist, the school psychologist, between both buildings. So the enrollment in Turkey Hill and given the enrollment at primary, they're sharing one psychologist right now.
Can I just respond to something about that? One of the things that I mentioned when we went to the education forum that Mandy helped organize. Okay, so you know. But for the people that didn't watch, one of the things that I asked the legislators about is whether or not they've considered an amendment to the regulations or statutes regarding out-of-district medical-related services that are billed to the school. And so if you look at the regulations for out-of-district placements, there is a very, very small sliver of costs that are borne by private insurance. There is a much larger slice of costs that are borne by the school but are medically related, and then there are educational costs. And so what I had asked, and what I'm probably going to end up doing, is drafting a revision to regulations or statute to make private insurance pay for services that are medically related, but for traditional reasons and probably a little bit of good lobbying by insurance
I was
companies.
gonna say, it's all about, they probably have a much bigger lobby.
They have a bigger lobby than all of us combined, but they were able to shift cost bearing on medically related services. Like one of the examples that's regularly mentioned is a clear intermittent catheter. And it used to be something that like maybe a school nurse could do, but it's medically related, and in some out-of-district placements, we pay for that. And it makes no sense. It's a medical procedure. Like I said at the beginning when I was talking to Renee, the test should not be whether the insurance companies want to pay for this, but whether you as a person would let a non-medical person do this to you.
Right.
And so, you know, like if we could recoup just a small percentage of those costs, even with only 15 out-of-district placements, that would be a substantial savings over time. And so the hope is that we can work on legislative fixes to that. Just like with the busing, and I'm sure you know this, but we had submitted a revision to the regulation on bus safety inspections that would require them to show that they've engaged in competitive bidding. I'm probably going to lose my headlights to somebody, but you know, whatever. The problem is that right now those two places are places where the statutes do not recognize reality, And until we have competitive bidding among buses and payment of medical costs by medical insurance, it's going to be foisted on taxpayers.
And one thing we have not seen over the years, change the subject a little bit, is a plan and or AKA a budget for all the grants related and revolving funds. We used to see a little bit. So I'm hoping that as we go into the next budget year, that this is going to be part of the conversation and presentation that we'll get from you guys. And also clarification on like the cafeteria workers, technically we're getting reimbursed from the state, extended day, we have staff there, who's paying their health insurance. It has never been very clear to me on, questions that I have had. So I think clarity around all these things helps us make better decisions and support in case you lose some of these fundings.
We'll definitely be able to do revolving funds. Federal grants right now, it's a toss-up with what's happening. I couldn't predict what we're getting back for reimbursement for any of our federal money, given the dismantling of the Department of Education and the handing back to the states. So for our initial budget presentation, when we're in budget season, I still don't think we'll have the answers for that, so I want to set a realistic expectation. Most of our grants are federal reimbursement grants, but those that aren't, we can definitely provide an update for you on.
I mean, even a conversation about this is the plan without the grants and this is the plan with the grants, so that there's clarity around those, that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even just the historicals on all those.
The other thing I'm curious to see as we get into budget season is, I know you made changes with fees and the busing, increased athletic activity, the kind of numbers you're seeing coming in from that. 'Cause I don't know if you're gonna continue that next year or not, but I don't, it's not gonna be a 5-digit number. But.
Yeah, busing last I checked in, which was a while ago, we had collected about 50,000.
Oh, wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Here's the reality. I'm sorry I disagree. So Tony, I disagree with you on this one because I know how you feel about it.
I agree with you, and then Laura convinced me.
Yeah, but at this point, you can see, I do math and how many teachers and how many pairs things would pay for, and.
Well, the thing about the busing that I, if you don't put a fee on it,
I know.
people are going to overuse.
I know you're right. It's sad.
I know. I wish we weren't in that place.
You're absolutely right. I was a public defender for 12 years. I made so little money at the start of my legal career that I qualified for the benefits for the people I was representing. I just can't, it hurts my heart to charge a kid to come to school. But you're right, and it's a lot, it's substantially more money than we thought we were gonna raise. I mean, it pays for a teacher, and at the end of the day, it's about student achievement.
And I don't,
Mr. Barron, right.
Mr. Parents,
I
yeah.
don't think people stopped riding the bus, so I don't think people were just saying they were using the bus and then not because it was free, but charging
all the
people-
decisions are bad.
Charging people.
Honestly, I mean.
I know, it's hard.
Yeah.
And my kids just, by the way, graduated less than 10 years ago, so I'm not that far out. But, one other, you guys are looking to buy two vans to drive kids to school?
Oh, no.
To drive the kids to sports events?
Yes.
Okay. So the ski team that was the state champion, the parents drove the kids to the Shubavala.
Of course.
So
we know this.
So, it's like we are providing more services now than we did 10 years ago.
It's more equitable too. We have more low-income students. I mean, I imagine there may have been students who didn't get to participate in the championship ski team because their parents were unable to drive them.
I think you're that's a big assumption there. I think it was a lot of carpooling and working. My point was, we are offering more services now than we did before, and whenever we do that, we're adding to a very tough situation. That's my point.
I just think as the former vice president of the PTO, there are not a lot of parents who are available to help us with this kind of stuff. I mean, we are a small and mighty group that raised 20 grand last year, and we gave away 20 grand last year. We had raised over a few years. Brian's wife is a part of it. There's not enough parents who have the time and energy to be able to even participate in that. So asking parents to do more, I just think is hard. It's not.
And it's going to fail, right? It's
right. I mean, we have done everything in our power to get more people to join the PTO, and it's not.
I think there's also more families that have 2 people working
Yes.
than it was 5-10 years ago too.
For those that were not able to tune in last week, and I know there's probably a lot in the public, there was a little commentary on the forum. Can we just get like a little brief on the forum, or maybe where we can go see it? Is it online?
Yeah, there's a link online.
Okay. I know I looked last week.
Yeah, I posted it on my personal Facebook, but I'm happy to send it to the town if they want to post it or whatever. I wish it was a little bit more well attended, but I think our speakers did amazing. Brian spoke, Shauna Burrell, who's the president of the PTO, and also Mary. There was a child who spoke.
She was amazing.
Who went to Groton Festival, who was unbelievable.
She had like numbers?
Yeah, so, I think it was a good first step. I'm going to do everything in my power to keep pushing on this kind of stuff. There's a group of parents and other people who are really want to keep going, but it's a long slog. I think personally my next goal is to get something in front of Governor Healy, because it drives me crazy when she's out there talking about education and we're getting, killed. But I have some ideas. I'm kind of hoping to maybe get some kids to make a video. What do you think about this, Jen? In your old political days, right?
Get them in their face and
Like
get them in the
a
elevator.
letter that everyone says, "Dear Governor Healy."
Put those kids in those elevators.
Yes.
We're gonna have vans to get them to the State House.
Right, we're gonna
Yeah,
have
that's what I
vans
mean.
now.
Just as long as they don't idle. That was one of the things I wanted to tell you, is the idle cost for the winter track was outrageous. So the hope is that the vans will help abate that. We also have a plan from the athletic director to abate the cost even without the vans. So that was a cost that we immediately identified, and Shanina put something in place.
That's
Right.
wonderful.
It
That's great.
drove me nuts.
Oh, it drove me nuts, and I wasn't even in the school.
And I didn't drive there. I didn't drive there while the buses were there.
Yeah, so one of the things Senator Cronin said during the forum last week that made me absolutely insane is that Leominster and Fitchburg have gotten $50 million from the Student Opportunity Act.
So I think that's an important point to make relative to that forum, that it was entirely clear that the state is at the root of most of the problems that we've been discussing here. It really pits citizens against each other that really essentially agree. Everybody here agrees that kids are a priority, and the state is failing in supporting and funding not only the children, that's a high emotional issue, but they're also failing the towns in general. In every single community in Massachusetts, the state is failing. And I think they forget that the 351 communities of Massachusetts make Massachusetts the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And they are not funding the towns appropriately. And everybody knows it. And I expressed some discontent with signing that last letter, because I had said we're telling them stuff that they already know. Letters we have already sent. And it's infuriating. And everybody in that forum, and it's probably why, I wasn't sure even why I went, but I was glad I did. I learned a little bit about the foundational budget. That was how that works was new to me. But every single person in that room understands that the state is the problem. And it's also very important for us to understand that the taxpayers of Lunenburg are very generous to the schools in Lunenburg and the children in Lunenburg. So all these struggles and all these difficult choices that we have to make are the direct result of the lack of funding from the states, specifically in this forum, schools, but in general, like the discussions they were having the other night, a very simple solution while they figure out how, this one lever changes another lever and causes all these other problems, is simply providing the towns back their own tax dollars through unrestricted general government aid. And we can find out the appropriate place to put that money. We don't need their complicated formulas in levers That is so frustrating, and when I say they made the formula, I understand it may not be the sitting representatives and senators. I do understand that, but they are the problem.
And I really want to thank all of you for your willingness to sign on to letters and do things, which I know is frustrating, but the only way we're going to get change is to be the biggest pains.
How long has this been,
We've got to do it strategically.
And I do agree,
This was not an issue on people's radar pre-COVID.
Yeah,
This works pre-COVID.
I actually have to say that I have seen a lot of articles out there about school funding and the Mass Municipal Association report they put out. I will always be accused of being an eternal optimist, but with your, Jen and I used to work at the State House together a long time ago. I mean, this is the most energy I have seen behind this issue.
Even starting with the forums out in the spring.
Yeah, in the spring.
This just wasn't an issue. The math worked for a long time until it didn't.
Nobody complained.
There was growth.
There was the Student Opportunity Act.
Of 2018.
When they passed it,
right,
people slowly figured out that it wasn't working.
Right.
But that was 2018, right? There was student opportunity.
So you're right,
But then you had ESSER money, right? We had the ESSER money, we had ARPA money. This is the first year that we are really, everybody is on their own.
But what's frustrating about the conversations, and it even happened at that forum, they talk about all these communities that were turning down Proposition 2.5 overrides. They identified that as a specific problem. So what is government's solution going to be? Is get rid of Proposition 2.5. So you have two contradicting statements right there. People are saying the residents, the voters, do not want to violate Proposition 2.5. And then they're going to suggest, why don't we just get rid of Proposition 2.5?
So in my
really
political opinion, the chances 2.5 goes away is very,
but the fact
but they're definitely priming the pump with that report.
That report says to me clearly that the problems of 2.5 are highlighted because of their lack of funding to the local communities. That is the problem. And their solution is going to be, you mark my words, get rid of Proposition 2.5. Even though everyone is telling them that the problems with the communities, nobody wants to pass a 2.5 override. So they want to take that right away from voters. It's what's going to happen.
I don't know that data is proving out.
No.
I just can't imagine the legislature voting for that.
Well, we're talking about, first of all, I just don't want to go that unchallenged about Leominster and Fitchburg getting a lot of money and they're rolling in, and the perception, having somebody who works in a very large city with a lot of the challenges in that school system is dramatically different and dramatically more expensive than this town has.
And I would agree with that.
So that the state of Massachusetts focuses resources towards those areas is something probably is a good thing in the long run. Now, the question is can the state provide more money to towns like Lunenburg? Fairly well-to-do, not, if the answer is yes, I would accept the money. However, if it's taking away from Fitchburg, Leominster, Worcester, Boston, New Bedford, and other towns that have a lot of issues, I would not be. So the question is going to be, is how is the state going to change these things? Now, 2.5 was done in 1982. All sorts of things have changed since the world has changed since then. But it was voted by the people. It was voted by the proposition. So the question is going to be, it's going to be very difficult for them to make major changes unless somebody comes up with a new way of doing it. And the goal of 2.5 was back then is to keep property taxes down.
No.
Yes, it was.
The goal was always, though, that was supposed to be a lever. It was not supposed to be a cap. It was supposed to be an optional lever.
I was a voting person in 1982. It was sold to us as schools and teachers and everybody who was against Barbara Anderson and all those other people.
Caesar's neighbor, fun fact.
Yeah. All those people were saying they're fat, those school departments, those school committee guys are just raising price. They don't care about my cost of my And of course, that wasn't the case, maybe in some towns, I don't know, but what it was that people were sick of it, and they put this in. 2.5 was not about inflation. Inflation was 10, 15% in 1982. It was about, and the state says, we're gonna provide you with some money, and we're gonna help you. And they have, for the last 40 years, mostly have done an okay job. Not perfect, nobody's happy about it, but it worked okay. So the question is, as I said before, we just went through some inflation, and 2.5 wasn't enough, so we're angry now. If inflation continues, I mean our inflation, not the CPI and all that stuff, our costs, if it keeps on going up, and it's not just us, it's Groton, it's all the other towns that are like us in Townsend and Pepperell and all those other places, then it's going to be John Cronin and Michael and all those people are going to hear, and all those people are going to be pushing at the State House to get something done. And that's what's going to happen, and that's how politics works. However, I hope it's not at the cost of the towns that have less resources than we do.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. One of the things I would say, though, is my son in 2nd grade has a friend who just moved to town from Leominster. He was getting MTSS services in Leominster because they have enough resources, whatever they're called now, interventionist services. And his mom asked if he could get interventionist services here. He's right in that yellow, I'm guessing, right? The interventionist services were keeping him up, right? We don't have the resources. He would be better off, that same child, going to Johnny Appleseed than he is here in Lunenburg. And that's not a problem. That's nothing with our teachers. That's nothing with anything like that. It's just where he lives, right? And that's the truth.
So I think what I heard, it was not that Leominster and Fitchburg is getting too much.
Yeah.
It's that the state is not giving us enough. And, the state budget is $60 billion. They're giving to the towns and cities in Massachusetts less than $10 billion. They need to increase that share. It's just insane how government makes government in order to spend money. And that share of money that comes back to the cities and towns need to increase. And anyway.
So I just want to thank you all for continuing to listen to me and sign things and stuff. And I'm going to keep asking you because the only way we get things done in politics is by raising. And I do think that our reps and senators want to help, but they need to be reminded every day that we exist and that we are a priority, right? Because they are hearing from about 1 million things and that's just how politics works. Right?
Yeah, I think it's keeping that open communication
Yeah,
with the town manager, the superintendent, and all the chairs.
Absolutely, everyone.
With our representatives, because again, if Chapter 70 doesn't change, we're going to need those supplemental resources, and they need to know what we need.
And the recording is on YouTube, Lunenburg Access YouTube.
Oh, that's great.
Is it the whole thing? Because it was cutting in and out.
It's 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, we'll share it.
I need to correct, I got bad information. Apparently Nancy O'Rourke is watching, or somebody's reporting to her. She says she never brought anything home to complete in front of the TV. So, corrected for the record.
I thought we
I
were
don't
not
know.
live.
I know, she's so dedicated.
We're on Zoom,
Oh, okay.
What was
So-
next on your-
not great.
That was it?
I love our employees. Our people are so dedicated.
She's retired. She's still watching. She's retired.
Educators are numbers.
He's amazing.
I can entertain a motion to adjourn the finance committee.
So moved. Second.
I remember you first, a second.
I'll second.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the school.
Well, let me take a
Oh.
roll call.
They got a vote.
We still have Mike and Jean on?
You do not.
They left? Yeah. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Now I'll make a motion to adjourn the school committee.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the select board at 9:52 p.m.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No.